registered attendees still grabbing something to eat. You're welcome. My name is Ewa Eleri. I am the Executive Director of the International Center for Energy, Environment and Development. We're based in Abuja in Nigeria. So you're welcome to the policy panel, the art and the science of clean cooking policy innovation. And we're here with good colleagues of mine, Martin Asimwe from the Ministry of Infrastructure in Rwanda. You're welcome, Martin.
Thank you.
And we have Dr. Dr. Faith Wandera Odongo of the Ministry of Energy in Kenya. Dr. Faith, you're welcome.
Thank you.
On my left-hand side is Dr. Rana Tapa from the Ministry of Energy, Water Resources and Irrigation in Nepal. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Our colleague from the World Bank, Yabe Zhang, from the carbon
SMAP,
yeah,
Energy
SMAP,
Sector
from SMAP,
Management
yes,
System.
wonderful. You're welcome, Yabe. Thank you, everybody, for coming. The development of policies on clean cooking has kind of gained momentum in the past couple of years. Yeah, shall we dance first? Thank you so much. That was a good one. And this is not surprising because several countries have setting targets on how to achieve either the NDCs to the Paris Agreement, or in fact broader national policies like our own. We just, in my country, Nigeria, we just launched our energy transition plan. And clean cooking for the first time measured as a major segment in this transition plan. And I guess that is what is happening in most countries. That the interest to expand access to clean cooking is something that can no longer wait. And therefore, it's a bit important that we compare notes between countries. Okay, so I can take closer now. Thank you. So it's important that we can compare notes between countries that are developing policies, developing strategies, developing programs, and the different frameworks that helps to incentivize expansion of access. So, but this is not only a technical matter. It's also policies, by implication, is political. So it's not about getting the policies right. It's also being able to carry along influential constituencies within these countries to support these policies. So the political economy behind policies are important. Having influential constituencies in your parliament, in the government, in the private sector, in civil societies, supporting this. Or, let's not forget, including donors, international development finance agencies. So today we have the privilege of having colleagues who are working on these issues from 3 countries, and also a colleague from the World Bank who have been involved in supporting a number of countries in making sure that they develop policies that are fit for purpose. So, shall we say ladies first? So, Dr. Faith, I am going to give you like 5 minutes, 7 minutes, to give us an overview of just the key targets of the strategy that the government of Kenya is developing. I know you're working on a number of strategies for expanding our assets. You have quite some ambitious targets with plans to eliminate dependence on solid biomass fuel by 2028. How do these targets influence policymaking by the government? What approaches are being used by your ministry to develop these specific targets? What motivated this particular approach? What is happening at the sub-national level? Because often the work on policies often hang at the national level, like in Nigeria at the federal level, and doesn't quite sink to be devolved to local institutions. So if you can give us an insight on just both the targets, and how these strategies have been developed and how they can be devolved to local levels. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ewa. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'll just walk you through the processes that Kenya has gone to reach the stage we are at developing strategies. It all started with the elaboration of SDG 7. And okay, that was not the first time we were handling clean cooking issues. I remember handling clean cooking issues as far back as the 80s. But the SDG goals marked a major step in helping Kenya move forward with the clean cooking issues. And the elaboration of the Sustainable Energy for All Action Agenda 2016 was this turning point, where clean cooking was identified as a high priority. And lucky for Kenya, it was happening at the same time that we were reviewing the national policy, which was finalized in 2018, and we were also reviewing the Energy Act, which was finalized in 2019. So the SC for All Action Agenda took into consideration all these reviews, and we kept updating the information as it came. So as it stands, the SC for All Action Agenda 2016 was effectively aligned to the national policy and the Energy Act. So after elaborating the SC for All Action Agenda and identifying clean cooking as a high priority, this issue has been picked up both at national and international levels. And I would say that the push at the national level has given impetus into what the Kenyan government is doing on clean cooking, in the sense that clean cooking has now been prioritized and it's being spoken about at political levels. Previously, it would be very rare to find a government minister talking about clean cooking at his sessions or maybe national sessions. But right now, it's occurring. And this is a turn of things that we really had not anticipated previously. And for us, it's a good thing because we are now moving in a direction that gives clean cooking the importance it deserves. But we haven't stopped there. In having elaborated all these policies, when you have an action agenda, the next thing you need to do is make that action agenda work. And for us, what we have done is to elaborate strategies that help us to achieve the target set in the action agenda. Our target for clean cooking in the National Action Agenda was to have 100% transition to clean cooking by 2030. But then, during the Clean Cooking Forum 2019, this target was reviewed to 2028, to be achieved 2 years earlier than the planned target in the action agenda. So this set minds rolling. We have a few years to 2028. What do? We need to put in place the necessary mechanisms that take us there. So this one target that was set on clean cooking has driven the process or stimulated a chain of events into what has happened in Kenya. Currently, we are developing a clean cooking strategy, national clean cooking strategy, that focuses on promoting various fuels, including biogas, LPG, electricity, bioethanol, and improved cook stoves, because for improved cook stoves, we don't leave behind the people who are still the low-income people who cannot afford these the very clean stoves that we float around. Electricity, LPG, they are quite expensive for them to afford. So having done that, then we are also looking at developing an integrated, national integrated plan for energy access. In this plan, clean cooking has been given priority it is at the same level that we are putting it at the same level as other forms of fuel like electricity. Previously, clean cooking was just domiciled in a department and it was just looked at a very low level. But right now, we are elevating it within the integrated national energy plan to make it more accessible to communities at the grassroots. And what we are doing at the grassroots also links now with the devolution framework that we have in Kenya. We have separated the national functions from the county functions. And through that process, we are capacitating the counties to plan for energy resources, and clean cooking is also a priority at county level. In the county energy plans, we would like clean cooking to take center stage and be something that is talked about by the governors at their level. We talk it at national level, and that is the way that the direction that Kenya is moving.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Martin, in Rwanda, the Ministry of Infrastructure, which seems to be quite an influential ministry, has the responsibility to promote clean cooking. And being a ministry with so many other departments, how does the prioritization of clean cooking happen with such a large ministry? And what kind of ambitions are being set for clean cooking in the government? And what is the role of the private sector, for instance, in being able to achieve those targets?
Thank you, Ewa, and I'm very humbled to join a distinguished panel, including my colleague Yabe. We happen to work on one of the pioneer clean cooking program in Rwanda. Indeed, clean cooking in Rwanda has been, I would say, a critical area of intervention of late. In 2017, we were looking at almost, I think in the morning session, they were talking about 920 million people without access to clean cooking. 8 million of those were in Rwanda by 2017. So you can see that 8 million out of a population of 12 million. So you can see that there was already a need to promote clean cooking or to transition that big population to access clean cooking. I start with that because that's where previously, though the energy policy had provided that clean cooking as a priority, but as even the previous speakers indicated, it was not really a priority considered to other subsectors of energy like electrification. So in 2018, the government started on elaboration of the biomass to energy strategy that outlined, that was also aligned to the energy policy and other national development plans, including the National Strategy for Transformation, with an ambition to reduce, to have the number of people that are depending on use of traditional cooking methods from around 83% to 42% by 2024. This was translated into different actions that were outlined in the biomass energy strategy that was developed in 2019. In this case, we are targeting at household level, because we cluster them from household institutions, and of course looking at, that is from the demand side, but also looking at the supply side of increasing the acreage of a biomass supply. So at the household level, we are looking at in urban areas, transitioning households to use of LPG and electricity, and as well as cleaner cooking solution like pellets, but of a high tier. Then in the rural areas, we are looking at deployment of improved clean cook stoves, which are affordable to the lower income households that dominate the rural setting. But we don't forget the large, among the large consumers of biomass, which happen to be institutions like schools, prisons, tea factories, among others. And we're also targeting those, especially schools, to use improved cook stoves, where possible, use biogas, and of course LPG.
Okay.
So in that sense, we target, that's the setting, and this has been translated into the commitments we've made in NDCs and the Energy Compact that was launched last year at COP 2026.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you for reminding us. Often the focus is on households, but energy for productive use is actually quite important, and also it's a big segment of especially biomass energy consumption. So energy for productive use, institutional use, like for schools and prisons and so on. Thank you so much. Shall we turn to our colleague from Nepal, Rana? A couple of things that are interesting. One is the goal setting, the targets that has been set by the government of Nepal on clean cooking, but also some of the innovative work that you have been doing, on the tools for developing these strategies. For instance, you have the Energy Explorer, a data-driven approach to developing policies, and also, like in Kenya, you're also working to involve sub-state actors, devolve, decentralize policymaking and implementation to local governments. So please, can you shed some light on both the targets and the tools that you've been used in developing the targets, and and the importance of working at the local level? Thank you.
Thank you very much. As you said that Nepal government has set ambitious target to provide the clean cooking solution for the all the households by 2030. There are many policy level instruments have been developed by the government, and each instrument has different target set up. For example, we have second national entitlement contribution that has set the country has to be net zero carbon country by 2045, and this clean cooking solution will be the instrumental for the to achieve the ambitious target. Similarly, we have sustainable development goal target for 2030. There are also different types of targets are being set. Besides that, we have periodic every 5 years we have periodic plan. Now 13 periodic plan is being implemented right now. But the problem is that government has set different targets in different documents. And recently, with the help of this Clean Cooking Alliance, we are preparing this county action plan for clean cooking solution in Nepal, and it is being prepared with the help of international experts. They have are developing it with close consultation with the national level, sub-national level, different stakeholders by reviewing all the policy documents, and that will be the instrumental, I think, to meet the clean cooking solution, which is the vision for the government of Nepal. And it has, from the preliminary findings, it has seen that there will be lots of resource required for that to achieve the target. The resources cannot be allocated by the federal government only. That's why we are closely working with the three tiers of the governments. For example, federal government, provincial government, and local level government. As per our constitution, we are, there is the 3C principle. For example, the three-tier government has to be work with close coordination with the collaboration, coordination, and the coexistence. So all the three governments have their own, can formulate own policies, plans, but they have to be work in the 3C principle. Then only we can achieve those ambitious targets, not only in the clean cooking solution, but also achieving all the sustainable development goals. So we are realizing on that. So we also are being developed with the help of this clean cooking solution. Clean cooking explorer is being developed. It is also the online open source database system that will help the policymakers, the planners to allocate the resource where should be focused. For example, Nepal is divided into 3 ecological zones. In the Tarai belt, we have different technologies preferred. In the mid-hill region, there are different types of technologies, and high hill, there is different type of technologies. So based on that open platform, that will help the planners where should the resource will be prioritized, because the resource is always the limitation for every government. So we are thinking that this open platform will be basis to explore in the future how to allocate the resource and make the decisions based on the data availability in the system.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And talking about, open source database planning tools. And I know the World Bank has been very active in developing policy planning tools, So, and as many countries, here are developing their own toolbox for expanding assets. It would be nice to hear the experiences of the bank in working with several countries in developing their nuts and bolts of, policy instruments, tools to be able to monitor progress, and so on. And then I also think that it would be nice to hear more about the work that you do on carbon finance. So Yabe of the World Bank.
Thank you so much, Ella.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So from the World Bank side, first, before I get to the tools and data, I want to resonate something talked in the morning about the role of the government, and because it's also closely related to the policy, the science, and art of policy making. And I'm honored to join our panelists from the government side, because I want to emphasize that, from the World Bank side, our clients are governments. So when governments, you prioritize clean cooking, we prioritize clean cooking. When you request the support on data collection or technical assistance, we will respond to provide such support. So that's important to know that the government really play a driving instrumental role on this agenda. I want to give an example before again dive into the data too. For example, in Rwanda. So in 2019, we launched the Clean Cooking Fund in September at the Climate Summit. And then that in November, we had a Clean Cooking Forum in Nairobi. So Kenya also launched the strategy. And then that the following week, I went to Rwanda to start our identification of clean cooking operation there. And the government showed me, okay, they have developed the clean cooking strategy, launched in October that year. So that's basically a good basis to say, okay, why we need to support. And then we're able to provide 20 million financing as part of 150 million project, energy access project. Of course, the majority still go to the electricity side. But at least, and for the first time, we're able to include a 20 million clean cooking component. That's the largest World Bank operation in Africa in cooking sector. The project was approved in September, I think in July 2020, and then became effective in March 2021. Now, after more than a year implementation, I think the whole structure is setting up, the results-based financing approach, and then there are more than 20 companies that are still eligible for the program. They're already for sales on the ground. In addition, in June this year, we approved additional finance, including carbon finance of more than 10 million to purchase carbon credits generated from the clean cooking operations and upgrade operations. And so that the carbon revenue can flow back to the RBF fund to make it a revolving fund, make it more sustainable. And then in addition, we also provide additional finance thanks to the government of Denmark with additional funding for institutional cooking for schools. So what I'm saying is that once you have good strategy, targets, showing the commitments, you're able to bring financing. And then once it's working, you'll attract more financing. Because every financer wants to see the results, want to see impacts on the ground. So how to get there? How to start a good strategy and planning? We're also here to help.
Okay, yeah, but that is true. The plans have to be in place, the strategies have to be in place, to show ownership and commitment by the governments. But one other thing that is often lacking is the capacity to pull things together. For instance, a lot of the countries are struggling with carbon finance in Africa, and what kind of support can this country get, say, from SMAP in being able to build a capacity to access carbon finance? Because it's not only carbon finance within the Paris Agreement, which is Article 9 or so, but even during the CDM period, the period of the CDM, I think 75% of all carbon financing under the CDM went to India, China, and Brazil, So Africa got less than 10-15% of that during the CDM. So I think since we're still in the early stage of the post-CDM period, it would be good to hear some kind of thinking about capacity building within these governments.
Yeah. So again, that all our program, World Bank Finance Program, include capacity building. So it's often, actually, sometimes the government, we want more funding to the investment side because investment linked to the results, right? The number of households getting access to clean cooking versus, okay, the capacity build that for clean cooking sector, definitely they need quite also technical assistance to try to build up the market. There's market players, there's government regulators, there's standard and testing, all those relate to the policy making that takes time to take dedicated efforts to bring the knowledge from other countries to the state-of-art information and tools to the country as a part of effort to build capacity. So from the bank side, again, on the tools and the data, so at the planning side, we have launched the Clean Cooking Planning Tool in May this year in Kigali during the SE for All Forum. So the tool includes data for 71 countries. It's top-down, scenario-based planning tool. For any country, you can see your current status, like a baseline year 2020, where you are in terms of the traditional cooking, the improved cooking with improved stoves, all the clean fuel solutions. And then you can select scenario in terms of where you want your country go. Urban population, rural population, and then how that translates into the investment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then what's the cost? What's the benefits associated with different scenarios?
Such a tool will be very important for so many countries. And, you know, as we go along, and I just hope that, you know, several countries can seek that kind of support, or that support should be in the public domain, you know, that it becomes easier for other countries to not go through reinventing the wheel while those tools are already there. Shall we open up for some questions and questions from the audience, comments? Yes, please. Huzi, is that you? Yes, please. Huzi Mshela. Are there more hands up there? Yes, please. I recognize you over here. And
Thank you very much, and to the panelists. My name is Huzi Michele from Nigeria. My question is to Kenya. When you revised or you changed the timeline from 2030 to 2028, in terms of your achievement of the target that you set for yourself, when you revised the timeline, what happened? What influenced the change of timeline? Because you said you wanted to achieve 100 access by 2030, but you revised it to 2028. So what essentially changed when you revised this timeline? Thank you.
Maybe we'll take two more questions and then. Yes, please.
Thank you so much. I'm Karine Buma from ICLEI Africa. So we work a lot with local governments in Africa. And my question is around, just dedicated to you from the World Bank. To what extent we have data for informal settlements? So we are currently working on a project to address clean cooking in informal settlements. We're piloting it in 2 African cities for now. And what we are realizing is that this is often a gap. So data is usually very difficult from our assessment to get. You would hardly find it out there. But we know that informal settlements make up a huge population or percentage of urban dwellers in Africa. So how are you accounting for that? Are you making the intentional effort to get data on that? And also the planning tool that you mentioned, the clean cooking planning tool, I would really look forward to see what it's about. But also curious if you took into account the informal settlements. So you mentioned the urban, formal, and also the rural, which is usually the case. What about that informal component? Is it also addressed in that tool? Thank you.
Okay, more questions? Yes, please. There's the gentleman on the left-hand side. Okay, Daniel, and then.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel from Techno Oil Limited. My question goes to the World Bank representative. You talked about you finance countries, or you give support to countries that have shown strategy, commitment, and set targets. By any chance, do you deal directly with the private sector? That's my question. Do you deal directly with the private sector, or do you have to interface with the government before you are scaling down to the private sector? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Timothy Kayumba. I'm from Rwanda, and I work with Practical Action. So my question is to the sustainability of the fundings and again the technologies that are being funded, not only in the line of Rwanda that is being supported by the World Bank and the RBF company, but how do we make sure that at the end of the project, the beneficiaries are not going back to the three stones at the end of the day when the project is no longer into implementation? Again, how would the policies under the funding from the World Bank be able to support the local producers than the importation? To me, that would be a strong point, our position, to make sure that even when the project phases out, at least there are local producers who would be able to make sure the beneficiaries still are able to acquire the technologies from their side. So I'm imagining how would that be brought onto the table and be able to sustain the things that have been developed up by the World Bank project, but also benefiting the local producers. Because when I saw the list of the stoves that have been stoves that are eligible to participate into the RBF company, most of them are imported, and I thought maybe that would be at the other side the threat on the sustainability.
Okay, shall we? Thank you. The gentleman on the, yes, please.
Yes, my name is Alou Wakne. I'm from Senegal. I'm entrepreneur of bioenergy. My question is, I have the answer for my question.
Please, can you speak up a little bit?
Yes, my question is about the solution. What we have going on right now is to work toward the bioenergy production for the young generation African people. They can make our own production. That will help also not just focus on the cooking stove, but also focus on the fuel. Like the reason why I say that, I do research over 7 years how to build an extruder machine. I did build my own extruder machine. For the younger generation, we can extend that for all the country, African country. We can build our own machine, get our own product, biomass product, and also reproduce it out for fuel. I think that would be very important, and we have the solution. My machine has been patented from the African organization, African Public Intellectual, and I'm open to teach that to the younger generation, African brothers and sisters, so we can guarantee to have our own product and our own resources.
That's a good question. Thank you. I was just thinking, let's take all the questions now, and then we'll have a last round, and the panels will just answer the ones that are closest to their area of interest. So we can take like 2 more over here. Yes, please, madam.
My name is Zijun Li, energy specialist with World Bank, ASMAP. So I have a question for the government officials at the panel. What's your position on free distribution of the improved cook stoves? Because given the recent development of the voluntary carbon market, we've seen like an increasing number of bilateral transactions between the private developers and also like the government, at the local level government. So we want to, to us, I think it's also a matter that should be addressed at the government level. So, so we want to hear from you, like, what's your position on free distribution? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so to some of us on the panel that work for the government, can we? Yes. All right, so.
My name is Kweku Korante.
All right, okay.
I'm from Italy, Africa. We're working on a number of energy interventions in 2 African cities, Freetown and Kampala. We have actually interacted with a number of service providers along the project implementation. There's one interesting observation that we made throughout the whole implementation process, where we have solutions that are not homegrown. Most solutions that have to do with clean cooking have components or specific technologies that are important. the World Bank in here. In terms of designing funding for such interventions, is there any room where you can indicate clearly local sourcing of materials right from fuel to appliances, so that again it provides not just technology for communities, but again opportunities for people to be able to create income out of it.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
It's important to reflect more.
All right, so shall we take a last round within the panel? There's been questions on, date setting, the change of dates in, on the targets in Kenya, informal settlements, local production, the World Bank being able to interface with the private sector, not only government, policy planning tools for informal sector. How do we ensure that people do not climb down the energy ladder, for instance, people who have been promoted to make the transition to cleaner fuels? How do we ensure that they don't return to dirty fuels? Issues about youth, innovation and local production, and carbon financing and so on. So I also just want to add one more issue to the mix here, and you can all choose which one that you're answering. Because, I'm just thinking about it, why we are here in the first place in this beautiful city of Accra to talk about something as simple as cooking is because people essentially are poor. That's the only reason I can think of, because if we were all having good incomes, we could all be able to afford cleaner fuels and technologies because we will know it is good for our health. So we have more than 1 billion people that are without clean cooking options, essentially because main reason is because they are poor, So that when we're designing policies, we should not lose sight of that fact, that there's a major fundamental that is there, that this is essentially poverty-driven, and that policies we develop should be those policies that are poverty compatible in a way, that addresses the root causes of using dirty fuels, So I think that is quite important that we always keep in view that both target setting and the tools in addressing energy poverty needs to be grounded with the reality or the fundamentals that it is poverty driven, So let's start from the right-hand side. Martin, please. There are a number of questions, that were addressed to you.
Yeah, thank you. I want to begin maybe with the question raised on sustainability. And I think this brings us to the need to have the nexus between government funding, the role of government and the private sector. When in our policy, it is also provided that private sector plays an important role in implementing the policy. That's why even in the formulation, they participate from the formulation even to the implementation. And in this case, my colleague from Rwanda, I think, asked how do we ensure that the systems provided, these people will not go back to using traditional biomass. Traditional methods as before. And how does the policy support local producers? I think all these are very critical. In this case, when we previously, even before the Clean Cooking Fund that the World Bank is providing, the clean cooking sector in Rwanda was kind of perceived to be private sector led. But we borrow a leaf from other programs that we're implementing, including in off-grid solar systems, where we had to support the private sector or provide funding to the private sector to support them to through providing access to cheap loans, setting up regulatory frameworks, standards, as well as market involvement. In this case, you find that the private sector are interested to participate and to grow the sector with the support, but with some incentives from government. Another item, maybe Bay will talk about it, is the incentive scheme to also address the issue of affordability that you are talking about. The government, through the funding, is providing subsidies, and this subsidy scheme is also anchored to our homegrown solutions, where in Rwanda households are classified in a way depending on their income levels, and the lowest
subsidies, some fuels, or subsidies
on access to these clean cooking systems. Okay. And they are provided in a manner that the lowest income household is highly subsidized compared to, and also the highest efficient clean system is also highly subsidized compared to the lowest. How we also look at sustainability in terms of promoting local manufacturers. And in this case, I think we also have, under the Clean Cooking Program, we have, there is a fund, even with other development partners, on supporting local manufacturers to have the capability to produce eligible clean cooking systems that can participate in the program. Okay. Another question, I think, was to one asked by Jean with regards to free distribution of. This is still a big challenge because, as our colleague from World Bank mentioned, we have this additional financing that is looking at from providing carbon credits from the companies that are participating in the program. Yeah. But we also have already companies who are still hesitant to participate in the program because they don't want to lose their voluntary carbon programs that they had before. And in this case, I think at a government level, maybe we'll hear from even our colleague from Kenya, but I think our opinion is that it's very hard to, I think, is to establish guidelines to keep the required standards, yeah. But also it will be very hard to close because this is a free market.
Well, let's hear from the experiences from fellow East African country in Kenya, Dr. Faith. Number of questions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll start with the question that was asked about what changed when we revised the timeline. And basically, we adjusted the pace at which we were doing things, in the sense that previously we did not have this thinking about developing the clean cooking strategy and the electric cooking strategy. But after the timelines changed, the discussion on doing the clean cooking strategy now started, and it was coined at COP26. So since then, since the agreement was done that was reached that Kenya needs to do a clean cooking strategy, we have put a lot of measures in place to help us get where we want to get with respect to these two strategies. And of course, we also realized that we needed some very reliable data on which we could base our projections for the clean cooking, like what composition of clean cooking shall we have in 2030, progression from now to 2030? What proportion of bioethanol would you have? What proportion of electricity? What proportion of biomass? What proportion of LPG? We needed to do all these things. So we are now trying to gather the necessary data to help us do those projections so that it can inform the planning process.
Yeah.
And of course, the need for mobilizing resources. As World Bank said, if you don't have a plan, if you don't have targets, really nobody's going to look at you. And we also realize the need to put our clean cooking targets in the MTP4 process, and that we have already done. So kind of the way we are doing things is much different from what we are doing before. So regarding the free distribution of cook stoves, we used to do this long time ago, but we realized it creates a sense of dependency. You may give a household a stove, a free stove. What happens when it breaks? Will they really have that motivation to get that stove? When they pay for it, they actually know why they are buying the stove. And after it breaks, they know what they are missing. So they will be motivated because of what they have been enjoying. The stove has broken. They will go back and they will look for some money and buy the stove. So government of Kenya does not necessarily promote free issuance of stoves to communities. But as said by my colleague in Rwanda, there are those household levels where the income level is so bad that something has to be done by the government to enable these people to benefit from the clean cooking campaign and promotion. So that is when you come in and say, based on the categorization done by the government, we will select certain vulnerable households, we will give them free stoves, and maybe people in a different category you can decide to subsidize, but these subsidies should not be there forever. There are subsidies that stand for a short time, and after that, when you see that people have really embraced the spirit of using these stoves, then you break off the subsidy.
Yeah, there's always going to be that debate on how to engender that transition, knowing quite well that affordability is a big issue for the bottom of the pyramid. You know, issues of smart subsidies, you know, other issues around how to be able to exit from such subsidies, not to create dependence. So Rana, a number of questions, I guess, that's of interest. You know.
Yeah, in addition to the earlier they spoke, I would like to add a few things. Regarding this sustainability of the projects, after the project, we have to be focused on how to make the technology readily available within the local communities. For example, the technology availability and also the after-sale service. The planners and development partners all have to think of that while promoting technology, that technology should be easily accessible and that should be affordable to the marginal peoples. We have not to go to the high-tech technologies because it is expensive as well as it is the costlier in operation and maintenance. So we have to think on that, and ultimately that should be accepted by the communities. As long as the people don't accept the technology, it will not work. So that's why we, in all over the continents, the project starts with the piloting, and if it is acceptable to the society, then it goes to the mainstream. So that is, I think, World Bank also does same things in Nepal as well as other country. So we have to think of that kind of things. Regarding this free distribution, so we have bitter experience. It is also a long back, more than 15 years ago. we had distributed some very small size solar PV system, 10-watt system. That will, the government was thought that will help the children to get better light to have the study purpose. But it works only for 5 to 6 years. After that, nobody was responsible to repair that or replace that. So after that, government in Nepal never think of free distribution of any kinds of the technologies. Recently, we work for the induction cookie stoves. One of the political leaders said that our party is going to distribute freely. He spoke during the election period. Actually, that was not the free distribution. What we did is that we focused the marginalized people who cannot afford. The user selection was done by the local government. They have to focus on the single woman and socially disadvantaged people. So, there was cost sharing of the induction cookie stove, 80% from the federal government, 20% from the local government, and the utensils has to be managed by the users. That means it is less than 50% subsidy. Even though one of the political party people said that it is free distribution, and that was not the real case, and it was very much. We got the questions from the different sectors why you are distributing the free cookie stoves, something like that. We get the questions from the journalist people like that. So even we are going to implement one of the Green Climate Fund project. It is also a clean cooking solution. Within 5 years, we are distributing 1 million clean cooking solution to the 1 million households. 0.5 million for the electric cookie stove, 10,000 domestic biogas, and 490,000 tier 3 improved cookie stove. So in that case also, what we are considering that in the beginning we will start with the 80% subsidy in the electric stoves. Next year it will go down 70%, 50%, and after 5 years it will be no subsidy. So the market will move by its own, because there will be many service centers scattered throughout the country, and the market center, the service center will get the job, repair and maintenance things, and also they will get the new customers, something like that. So our government don't accept the principle of free distribution. So that should be the principle for other countries as well.
Thank you so much. And you have some concluding remarks?
Yeah, thank you. Just to quickly respond to a couple questions.
Okay.
One is about informal sector data collection. I think it depends on survey, how survey is conducted. If it's a part of the national survey or our MTF, multi-tier framework survey, if it's counted, it's measured, it's counted, it will be analyzed. I think from our side, for MTF survey, we are now expanded to refugee and host communities. I think it probably will cover some of the population. And a quick question about whether World Bank work with the private sector directly or not. So all we do for the cooking sector, we definitely want to promote the market development. We work with the government. So our financing go to the government and then channel to the implementing agencies, and often use results-based financing approach to open process, welcome all the eligible technologies to come, eligible private sector to come. There'll be financing to incentivize the private sector, and technical assistance, awareness raising to support the private sector. The aim is to support more successful business to deliver solutions on the ground, and you will be rewarded for that. And the direct financing that the IFC, the International Finance Corporation, as part of the World Bank Group, they provide direct financing to the private sector. They're often a bit larger size. But also some of our projects also work with financial institutions. They provide a line of credits or the other type of financial instruments to the private sector. So I think that for the cooking sector, it's key to support market development. And the solution providers are the private sector. So everything we do is really try to help you, to grow you, to make you more successful. But again, you also need to be competitive because we are basically providing the level playing field and encourage everyone to be successful. But you have to have a quality product, high performance product, affordable product. That's key part of sustainability. So yesterday we have the knowledge change workshop among our countries, World Bank finance countries. One key message is that to achieve a scale, to achieve a sustainability, homegrown solutions is the key. And even for the imported products, they have to be localized. So it's not that we promote imported product or not. It's we support all the products and the suppliers. And the key is that we have to localize to provide sustainable solutions. And in addition, we also have some additional support like the innovation grant that we launched in some other countries. Some countries we support to provide additional support, especially targeting the local producers.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you so much, Abe. My dear friends, as you can hear, there is significant momentum for developing policies, incentivizing growth in access for clean cooking in several countries. There's strong backing from the government, as we can see around the panel. There's also significant interest in the private sector in this area. Many governments are not only satisfied with developing frameworks at the central level. There's significant devolution of activities in Rwanda, in Kenya, in Nepal, where provincial governments and local governments, local authorities are increasingly taking charge in these things. It's very important to ensure that this is sustainable, that there are strong political constituencies supporting this, you know, and also that we can prioritize. Not, of course, everything is important, but there are things that are more urgent and more pressing, you know, and if we begin to look at what works and what doesn't work, to be able to lift those at the bottom of the pyramid, those who are stuck with solid biomass, to find a path and a just path for them to transit to cleaner fuels that is also good for their own health. So again, thank you so much for such an active participation. And shall we put our hands together for the panel?